What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today. Hit that like button, you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Let's get into it, okay? Here we are. It is a new day. It is the beginning of a new day, March 16th. We are sitting at about 84.3K right now, just closing out the new day, 23 hours and 12 minutes left. Closing out the old day, I should say, opening up the new day. I do want to talk about some long-term price expectations because it's been a while since we talked about that. We're so focused on the day-to-day stuff. Sometimes it's nice to look at what we're going to do by the end of the cycle. I know a lot of you guys who've been following me for years now. You're fully aware of where we are going to go by the end of the cycle. That target has never changed, right? It has not been taken off the table once. But we're going to go over why in just a moment. Okay, first I want to start off with some short-term stuff. I have put C-Zar the bear to sleep. We are waking up C-Zar the bull, and every hour that passes, I'm growing more confident that this is the low and that we are going to continue going higher. That doesn't mean that we have to, right? Sometimes whenever I'm confident about things going through, they can go the opposite direction. It can happen. I want to remain cautiously optimistic, cautiously bullish that we have found our low, but fully aware that if we were to go lower, the target areas that we would have in mind from a low to a high here would be at about 74.2 thousand to 69.4 thousand, something like that, right? Finding resistance here at the golden ratio, right? We still haven't closed above it on a daily basis. We did close above it on a 4-hour basis, but we need to close above it on a daily, or did we? Oh, we did. We did close above it yesterday. Good. So do that again today. Do that again today. That'll look really good. That doesn't validate this as a low, but it really helps with the whole argument of this thing going higher. That's for sure. What is this here? Oh my goodness. What? Hold on, guys. Hold on. My daughter was playing with this thing. She was shining me in the eyes earlier. It's a bright. This thing is no joke, man. That's a big old flashlight. Let's see if that. Hold on. Don't look into the light. Woo! Yeah. This thing. Let's see. Boom. Makes the room extra bright. Okay. Oh man. I don't know why big black flashlights get me so excited, man. Anyways, getting on with ourselves here. Close above the golden ratio again. That'll help validate this as a low, but it is not actually a valid low until we close above the 236 here at about $91,000. It's also not just above the 236, but also above this daily high close, and we would be right back in the range of which we broke out from. If 91K doesn't do it for you, if you don't feel like 91K is enough, because we could go up to 91K C-Zar. What if we go all the way up here and then it's just a lower high in this series of lower highs? Okay, fair. What if we do that? That's fair. If 91K doesn't do it for you, then what I would say then is the golden ratio here from a high to a low is what we would need to see. High to a low here, golden ratio at about 95,500. If we close above there, at this point, in my opinion, closing 2 days above the golden ratio, if we can do that, that really starts to help this. And it's not this golden ratio, right? But it's this golden ratio from the low to the high here. If we can close 2 days above the golden ratio here, which if we do today, that would be 2 days. That's very encouraging. Getting above this 236 at 91K is very encouraging as well. I think you're in denial if we close above 91K and you think that we're still going lower. But you're definitely in denial. You're nonsensical if we close above this golden ratio for 2 days in a row or more, and you think that we're still going to go lower. No. At that point, we've pulled back through the breakout point. At that point, we are breaking through this consolidation phase here that we broke out of, and likely returning to the top end and piercing through that and going higher, right? I want to talk about going higher, and I want to first talk about the all-time highs, and then we can talk about where we're going to go as far as what the next target area would be. Okay, so let's zoom out. Let's talk about the all-time highs here, where I think we're going to go, because it's been a little while since we've talked about this. I always like using the fibs. I really do like using the fibs. We're going to use the RSI as well, okay? And then we're also going to look at the ribbons at the end, if I remember. From a high to a low, the very first bull cycle high to the bear cycle low, Bitcoin did this thing with the 2272, where it went just above the 2272. It's actually very common when you hit the 2272 to go just above it. You can stop right at it. Hell, you can even stop right below it, but generally speaking, you do go just above it. $1,000 was a nice psychological resistance, and still you went above it to $1,242. That's where you stopped, okay? Right there, just above the 2272. We do the next cycle from a high to a low. And the 2272 this time was at 16,000. And what did you do? You went just above it to about that psychological level of resistance of 20K. You stopped at $19,800 though, just below it this time, but still right above the 2272 cycle after cycle. Okay, is that a coincidence? Maybe not. I don't know. I think this cycle will help determine if it was. From a high to a low here, last cycle, we stopped at the 1618. We actually double topped there. And there's not many people who have made the same claim that I've made. I think that we were robbed. I think that this last cycle, we should have continued upwards. This should have been our finale phase. And last cycle might have been the cycle that actually broke above 100K if it weren't for a lot of things going on, right? We were on the back burner of COVID-19. We had the Russia-Ukraine conflict beginning, right? War, not conflict. I don't know why I call it conflict. I feel like that demeans it. It is a conflict, but it's a war. It's a straight war. Very brutal war between these two nations. Inflation was at high levels across the whole damn world, man. We had quantitative tightening going on. Geopolitical and just economic kind of things around the world were very tense and not good. This was actually the beginning of a recession. And the last administration, at least in the United States, they didn't want to admit that this was a recession. They had to change the definition of what a recession was. They literally did. Joe Biden's administration had to change. This is not if you like Joe Biden or if you don't like Joe Biden. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying a very real fact. This is not political. It's a fact. They had to change what the definition of a recession was during the Biden administration to prevent it from being called a recession. But make no mistake, if you're the average American person, if you are, not in the top 1%, you felt it, right? It's funny now because I feel like a lot of people are talking about a recession looming. We not that Bitcoin, obviously Bitcoin had a recession, it was a bear market, but you guys, from like 2021 to 2023, maybe up until this point here, honestly, we've been in a recession. It's happened. And now I hear all these people who are in they've got hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, right? These very rich individuals who know the economy and know the market well. They start saying we could go through a recession, but it's like, I think they're so detached from what's actually happened in America over the past 4 years. We were in a recession, guys. We were absolutely in a recession. It's already happened. And I don't know about you guys, but recessions aren't something that are common, and they're not something that generally lasts for a super long time. They can last years, but if we go through a recession now, this is going to be like the longest lived recession in history, since the Great Depression. It would be crazy, and I don't think that's what's going to happen. I do think that we have more growth to go, but what do I know? I'm just a chart monkey. I just look at numbers. I don't know everything. But I definitely felt the pressures. I don't know. I'm sure if I'm speaking to anybody in America, let alone the rest of the world, who's not in the top 1% of people, who doesn't have $100 million to their name or even like $10 million or more dollars to their name, I'm sure you understand exactly what I'm saying. It was not easy economic times that we had. And because of that, I think that we were robbed last cycle. I think we were supposed to continue higher. And in fact, a very famous and popular person in crypto, Anthony Pompliano, he says the same stuff. And I just started hearing that from him over the past couple of months. I'm assuming he's been saying it probably for a long time, but I've been saying it too. And it's nice to see somebody who's at least, I think he's a great mind. Great minds think alike. That's what they say. So do silly minds. But it's at least somebody else acknowledges that, right? The DXY was expanding. There's all kinds of things that held the price for Bitcoin to go back. All I'm doing right now is making an excuse for us stopping at the 1618 and not stopping at the 2272, okay? That's all I'm doing. From a high to a low here, from the last cycle high to low, let's carry on with this. The 2272 this time is at 462K. If you remember, not last cycle, but the 2 cycles prior to this, we stopped just above the 2272. At 462K, what's just above the 2272? $500,000. $500,000 is where I think we're going to go by the end of this cycle, around that area. Now, I know Kathy Wood and some other people that are also famous in the crypto space, they're talking about 770K, 700,000, going over $1 million this cycle. It could happen. Could this be the first cycle that Bitcoin sees a 2618 extension or more? Sure, it could be the first cycle that it does that. I'm not saying that it's impossible. We have a more bullish narrative going for us than we've ever had before. It feels like we're at a turning point now, a crucial turning point, not just in the American economy, but perhaps the whole world as well. Things are a bit tense right now, but I don't think that we're about to, I think that we've hit rock bottom, you guys. I don't think that we're about to start digging into the ground. I think we've, if anything, dug our heels in the dirt and we're ready to start climbing up the hill again, right? Not just in a price perspective for Bitcoin, but in an overall economic climate around the world. That's just what I think. But again, what do I know? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be right. We'll see how it goes. I definitely don't believe the bull market ends here, right? And from what we can gather, at a minimum, the minimum target would be about 173K, right? That's the minimum target because we've every single cycle gone at least to the 1618, if not the 2272 or higher, right? We've never seen the 2618. And there's a lot of people who would say that it's very possible, very real, that we will not see prices above the 173K, we won't go to these targets because every single cycle Bitcoin has diminishing returns. And I'll show you what I mean by that, right? Diminishing returns, for those of you who can't piece that together as to what that means, talking to you trolls, it means that as the cycles go from low to high, we get diminishing returns, right? Here was 5,202,000% in growth. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot. The next one was 62,000 in growth. It seems a lot less, but that's a lot. That is a lot. If Bitcoin moved up 62,000%, that's awesome. 12,000%, that's still a lot, but still getting diminished cycle after cycle. So last cycle, and a lot of OGs hold to the idea that we won't break 200K for this simple reason alone. Last cycle, we only grew 2,100%, which would imply then that this cycle will not grow more than 2,100%, which 2,100, by the way, that would put us right at about 344K. So a lot of people have, and generally speaking, you diminish this by a factor of about, I think, what is it, 5.3? The 5.3 theory, that's what Steve from Crypto Crew said, which it's not actually 5.3. If you input 5.3 from everything, you actually get numbers that are off by a significant percentage on each one. It's kind of like 5.3, but it's not actually 5.3. Like I don't know, if you put it, if you were to do the math yourself and do the numbers, you can round it and get it to 5.3. But when you're dealing with these big of percentages and big of numbers, it's actually very clear that was never actually a real thing. It's kind of, but whatever, it was close enough, right? And it worked for a lot of people. A lot of people went with the idea of the 5.3 theory. But it's been improved. It's been invalidated already this cycle. But to a large degree, what we've seen is a greater than 50% reduction cycle after cycle. Okay, so even getting to about 1,000% growth from a low to a high would seem rather impractical to anybody going off the narrative that we will see diminishing returns. I theorize that this cycle will be the first bull cycle. Not that we hit the 2618. It's not going to be the first bull cycle that we break through the 2272 and hit the 2618. No, but this will be the first cycle that we see non-diminishing returns. We see exceeding returns from the prior cycle. We've got much more bullish narratives going on. Interest rates are coming down. They're not increasing or even at least staying neutral. Inflation is getting under control. Quantitative easing is right around the corner. We have the M2 global money supply going up. We've got Uncle Donnie in the White House. Whether you like him or not, he is the most crypto-friendly candidate and president that we've ever had in crypto history. The narrative is stronger around Bitcoin specifically and the rest of the crypto world than it's ever been. If there was to be a time where we saw a cycle that grew further than the last cycle, it would be now. And again, just to see the same growth, 2,100%, that would put us right here at about 344K. I don't know about you guys, but to me, if you get above the 200 on the fibs here, that red line, that right there at 307, if you get above there, which that would mean if we get to just the same growth as last cycle, let alone if we exceed it, and my thoughts would be that we do exceed it, we probably don't stop here. The only next stopping point would be 462K. And I want to say that, again, if we go to the 2272, likely what we do is go just above it, and 500K would be the target. This is a target that I've had since the end of 2022, if not the end of 20, it might have been sometime in the middle of 2023 or the beginning of 2023. I can't remember. Anybody and everybody who's been following this channel since the beginning, or at any point, you should be very aware that 500K has been the cycle-ending target. It's never been taken off the table, not even once, man. This is the thing that we've been expecting this whole time. Okay. Diminishing returns set aside, fibs set aside. If we look at the RSI on a monthly time frame, I don't care if you use the RSI the same way I do. I have it set to a 10. You can have yours set to a 14. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the same trend line where you take the highs here and you connect them down. And I want to bring up a point. Each cycle, you've interacted with this trend line, but also each cycle, your cycle high has been on the second peak, right? One peak here, two peaks there. That's your cycle high. One peak here, two peaks here. That's your cycle high. One peak here, two peaks here. That is your cycle high. One peak here, two peaks here. It didn't hit the line. This is why I also think we were ripped off last cycle, you guys. I think we were supposed to, but it just didn't happen because of a bunch of reasons. Really a bunch of reasons. The DXY was on an explosive tear. Dollar gaining dominance while you're in a bull market. We've never seen that before. At least not to that degree. We've never seen an expansion of the dollar gaining dominance to the next phase like that. That held the price back a lot, paired with everything else that was going on in the world. We haven't interacted with this line once, and it's always the second peak that we stop, that we find our cycle high. Now you could say, someone could argue, well, what about these? These are two peaks here. Yeah, we haven't touched the line. We haven't interacted. No, I don't think so. I would say, if anything, what this is to me is not more bearish. This is more bullish than any other cycle, because we've consolidated up in this area, staying above the 60 on a monthly time frame. You guys, living in this area, that's crazy, right? Before we made our ascent to any of these levels, where did we live? We lived below the overbought zone. We for a moment in the overbought zone here, but here we lived below. You know, we did not live like this for most of the bull cycle up in this area. This gets us set up for very, very intense growth, and I expect that the next move that we have will be the biggest move of the cycle so far. I do believe that and this is where I think it's a good time to talk about the next move. I do think by the end of this next move, we're going to be at 170K, right? I don't think that 173K is the end of this cycle, but I do think it's the end of this next phase. I think it'll be the biggest move of the cycle so far, and we're going to see 173, if not higher, in price by the end of May. That's my expectations. Okay, I've gone over that plenty of times, but I'm trying to focus on the long-term stuff. What's cool about this RSI is that every second peak has a little bit of a time window to it, right? From this peak here to that peak here, and actually I put these lines up here and I didn't even show you, right? Oops. Yeah, we can have that, whatever. If you notice, again, I was showing you that every second peak is a cycle high. Second peak here, cycle high. Second peak there in the RSI, cycle high. Second peak there, cycle high. Second peak here, cycle high still, even with that lackluster cycle, okay? Now that we've gotten that out of the way, if we take this, I don't know why I've got the red circle of gloom and doom here. What is it? Do I press Shift P? Is that what it is, or just Shift? What? I forget what it is. I don't know, man. I'm going to stop doing that. Oh, ooh. Oh, that's nice. Can I do that? What? Hold on now. No, it's just there. Okay, I don't want that. Anyways, what the hell? How do I get rid of that? I don't know, man. Okay. Anyways, hi Rafiki. That's my cat Rafiki. From this high to this high, this peak to this peak, that's 4 months there. This peak to this peak is 7 months there, and this repeats. Actually, it goes from 4 to 7 to 4, and then back to 7, peak to peak 7. So we have a time frame of over a quarter of a year, just over a quarter of a year, to just over a half of a year before we've actually found our high. And the great thing about this, a lot of people are worried that the cycle's over. We haven't interacted with this level at all. I theorize that once we interact with this level, it'll probably be by the end of this next move, sometime in May, right? Which we're just going to basically straight skyrocket to this place. Maybe it's later, but then from that point on, we will have 4 months to 7 months left in the cycle. It's too early to say, but let's say it did get in May. Let's say it happened in May that we got up here. 4 months later would imply that the cycle ends in September. 7 months later would imply that the cycle ends in December. Now, just because we've done 4-7, 4-7 every time so far doesn't mean that we're going to do it this time. It's, I think, a bit of a coincidence. Maybe there's a purpose behind it, but if that's the case, technically what we'd look for is 4. I think this cycle will see something in between 4 and 7 months. Maybe not 4 months exactly. Did I move this? 4? I thought it was September. Isn't it? Yeah. Why did it just look like November? Anyways, maybe we don't hit this in May. Maybe what we do is we hit it in July or August or something like that, and we have 4 months, however long it is that it takes. Whenever we have this first interaction, I would assume that we have anywhere from 4 to 7 months left in the bull cycle before we find our cycle high. It's not that when we hit this line that it's time to start thinking the cycle's over. It's that we should be getting prepared that within the next quarter to a half year, the cycle would be over. We have like one more move left in it, okay? In fact, I want to do something that I haven't done. I don't think I've ever done this, but I want to do this now. What happened on each of these peaks here? How long did you consolidate? I mean, you consolidated for 4 months, but how long? What did this look like? Here's your peak here. You didn't really consolidate, right? You consolidated for 1 month and then you continued to run. Okay, so you had one red month here. Here on this next one, you had a peak. It was right here. You had 2 red months, and then the rest were green months. Okay. Like basically consolidated, though, instead of for 1 month on that cycle, this cycle you consolidated for about 5 months, and then 6-7 months you started to grow, right? So not that long, not even a half year of consolidation right there before having your run up. But both times, last move up is what that showed. Here, whenever you topped in your RSI, right there, you consolidated for about a month and then you moved up, right? So not that long, really not that long at all. We're not talking about one time, it was about 5 months, and that was because we had this pre-peak here, this in the middle of the cycle peak right there. This time was more sustainable or just parabolic movement that was more methodical. 1 month of consolidation, 5 months consolidation, 1 month of consolidation, and then here last cycle we consolidated yet again. I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and then we broke out 6, 7 months, then we dropped down. Wow, that's cool. So 5 months consolidation twice, 1 month of consolidation twice. We are on the iteration now where it would likely be the 4 months instead of the 7 months if you're flipping back and forth. I don't know if there's a science to that at all. I still would stand by the idea that once we hit this line, we have 4 to 7 months before we find our next cycle peak, okay? But probably in between instead of right at one of those numbers. But assuming that it's on the shorter end, because we alternate between the longer end to the shorter end, longer end, shorter end, longer end, we'd be on the shorter end of that now. I would assume exactly what I've been saying throughout this whole kind of consolidation phase is that the rest of this cycle, you guys, when we move up, we're not going to consolidate as we have here. We're not going to see these phases of consolidation. We're not going to consolidate like this anymore. These long phases of consolidation, they're over. We're going to be consolidating for like 6 weeks or less from here on out throughout the rest of the cycle. So whenever I say that we're topping off in May at 170K or higher, or maybe at least, if not 170K, if you can't get behind 170K, okay, I get it. You will. By May, you'll get behind it. But maybe we stop at 160K. Maybe we stop at 142K. Whatever. However long it is that we consolidate for, I'm going to guess that if we consolidate, if we find our high in May, it'll be by the end of June that we start to move up again. It's going to be quick. A lot of people are going to be thrown off by that. They're going to think that we need that because this is how Bitcoin's been this whole cycle. I'm assuming, and I'm not a prophet, right? I don't know the future, but I'm predicting the future right now, not in the form of charts, but in form of psychology with people. I'm assuming a lot of people here, once we top off, they're going to say, yeah, but look at all these consolidation phases. We're going to consolidate for 3 more months, and then that's it. We have one more run throughout the rest of the cycle. I don't think so, man. I think we'll consolidate for 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'll run up again. We'll be at $200,000 by like the 4th of July or somewhere in July. We're going to be looking for, and then maybe we go through a longer consolidation phase, right? Something like that, but nothing longer than maybe 4 to 6 weeks, if not maybe something around 12 weeks at the most. But I don't think that we'd see anything longer than that. Traditionally, historically speaking, Bitcoin doesn't really consolidate for more than 3 months in a bull market, except for its halving time bubbles. Okay, but I'm kind of growing tired of this video. I actually made a video earlier that was just like this, and I felt like it was on point a little bit more. I don't do my best takes on the second take, but my first video was muted. There was no sound, and I'm going to check and make sure this one has sound. But OBS, you guys, keeps screwing me up. It's not my mic, it's actually OBS. OBS is the problem, and I don't know why this keeps happening, but whatever, man. I think I've made the point. I've said everything that I need to say. Be aware that we could still drop to 74 to 68K. That's very possible. Don't be alarmed if that happens. One flash crash to the downside, it would be over like that, and then we'd be on our way up to new all-time highs. I fully expect by the end of May, we'll be somewhere around 140K for the people who are pessimistic. And if you're too pessimistic to realize 140K by May, I can't get on the same level with you, man. Really, I think we'll be at 170K by the end of May, and we're looking for $500,000 or more by the end of this cycle. The only reason why I think we could go above 500K is because we might have some pent-up aggression from last cycle. We've got a more bullish narrative than we've ever had before. It's very possible that we could, for the first time in Bitcoin's history, go to the 2618 if there was to be a time. This is a very possible cycle. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm leaning to 500K, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Expecting that by the end of this year, by Q4, sometime in Q4, I'm expecting $500,000, and that's the call, okay? I got nothing else for you guys. Look for 91K. Closing above $91,000 validates the low that we have here, and then we can start talking about new all-time highs in a matter of like days or weeks, okay? Hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.